The idea, insight, or secret you need for massive impact is just moments away. It's time to claim your career crown. The podcast where business owners and entrepreneurs share the keys to the kingdom to help you open the vault to your greater success. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Petite to Queen's Claim Your Career Crown podcast. I'm your host, Lynn, and today I'm joined by our special guest, Kathi Burns. And we're going to be talking about how to stop chasing squirrels and stay focused on advancing your career. And this is such an important topic because how you communicate builds rapport and relationships. If you get a ton of value in this episode, I would invite you to subscribe because it costs nothing to subscribe. Now, Kathi is a board certified professional organizer. So she's a CPO. She's an image consultant, an author, and speaker. Her mission for 2 decades has been to help clients move from overwhelmed, indecisive, and disorganized to clear systems that easily generate more income. Kathi is the author of 3 books and the co-author of 4 more. Kathi was lauded as a successful woman startup business by Good Morning America, and since then, her advice has been featured in Oprah Magazine, Martha Stewart Living, Better Homes and Gardens, Entrepreneur Magazine, and so many more. My goodness, Kathi, what a resume. Thank you for joining us. I am so thrilled to have you on the show today.
I've been so looking forward to this, Lynn. I can't tell you, productivity and spreading the news is such an important mission for me. And I know that as for you too, it's all about let's get more done in less time.
Absolutely.
Make more money.
All of the above. And, I really am interested in this storied career that you've had, but going back ways, what inspired you to start professional organizing and organizing professionals?
Well, when I started, I didn't even know there was such a thing. So I believe I've had 7 careers, and I believe that all my careers have led up to this final career, right? I've been doing this 20 years. It all started, I was a licensed Coast Guard captain. I was delivering boats. So I basically wanted to get paid to sail. So I became a licensed captain, and then I was sailing around. And I remember I was out to sea one night and looking just at watching a satellite go over, really, which is interesting, thinking about on everything back in my apartment and realizing that none of it was anything of any consequence. There was like one thing. I'm like, what if I lost everything? It wouldn't even matter. And so I would come back to shore and I would purge, and I'd start just downsizing and downsizing. So I had the clarity because I hadn't been there, right? I wasn't married to my stuff. After that, I became a travel writer, and I lived out of a suitcase for 42 weeks a year. So I was always on the road, living small, right? Again, I'd come back after I'd been on the road for a while, and I'd get rid of everything in my apartment because I realized I didn't miss any of it. I had what I needed in a suitcase. So flash forward a few years after that, I was kind of looking to reinvent myself, and I took a year off to kind of regroup and get my mind together. And I met a woman who was also on a year journey off, and she was on a healing journey, a different path, but we become really fast friends. I go to her house and I'm like, girlfriend, you're never going to heal if you have all this stuff. You're surrounded by too much stuff. You got to get rid of some stuff. I immediately was like, we got to purge. We got to, give your space to heal. I knew that open space is really, really an important part of reinventing yourself, healing yourself, moving forward, getting the guy, getting the car, getting the house. I mean, I've seen it over and over and over. The more space you have, the more you can thrive and let new stuff come in. So she said, well, you know what? You're really good at this. And it ends up that I'm like, oh, well, this is kind of fun. And she goes, well, you should talk to my girlfriend who's been hiring a professional organizer for years. And so I had an interview, and I'm like, what's a professional organizer? I had an interview with her friend, and I immediately said, this is my new calling. This is what I'm going to do. And so, here I am, flash forward 20 years later. I now sit on, and to become a board certified professional organizer, it takes like 3 years of paid experience. You have to take big tests and all that stuff. You have continuing ed. I did all that, and now I'm one of the oldies, and I actually help sit on the board exam review committee and craft the or craft the questions for the quiz, for the test, and that type of thing. So I've been around, but that's a very long, hopefully short enough story of why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Yeah, no, it's great. And I love the backstory. And as we go into this, I'm really curious because, highly intelligent people can, they get distracted in the, by squirrels, chasing the squirrels instead of focusing on advancing their careers. So let's talk about that and how people get, you know, really into this sort of vortex of distraction.
Yeah, we get in the weeds. Well, I love to do it. I love to talk about squirrels because, for starters, I don't know if you know that 42% of the nuts that squirrels bury, they lose.
Yeah.
And I think of us in entrepreneurs, we do the same thing, except for squirrels have one up on us. They actually are more productive than us. 80% of what we do doesn't mean anything. Only 20% moves the needle, right? So it's the old 80-20 rule is alive and well. I don't care what you think of it. Any application, I can always think, okay, that's 80% that's fluff, 20% that's going to move the needle. And so, especially as entrepreneurs, especially as creative individuals and business people who are accelerating our careers, we tend to jump from branch to branch to branch and trying to look for the best next thing, right? The next best thing, thinking that this will work and then this will work. And then we're like, squirrel, squirrel. And then all of a sudden what happens is we have maybe 3 emails all going to 3 different places. We have 5 contact databases that aren't even talking to each other. This is what happens when we get distracted. I call, my clients and me are highly distractible. I mean, I work full time on keeping myself focused because I'm a little bit ADD, ADHD, right? So I get it, but we just have to really focus in on doing one thing at a time, doing it very well, stop jumping to a new branch of the next latest greatest until we realize that what we're using now either is ineffective or just won't work for us. Then we can try something else. But
Yeah.
oftentimes we just try things all over the place because it's fun. I mean, creativity, creating new things is fun, right? That's what we love to do.
Yeah, but to your point, I mean, that chasing the shiny object, that's another way to phrase this. But I love the metaphor of the squirrel jumping from tree to tree because I can just see that.
Yeah.
So, how do you help people ignore the squirrels and branch jumping, so they can stay on track, so they can keep that focus? And do you have a process for this?
Yeah, the number one thing from as a professional organizer, let's have our surfaces clear. Let's have room in our home. Let's have room in our office. Let's get rid of the distractions. I always say that 60% of your desk should be open for business. Like it should be open and free and clear. Because what happens is, and we'll talk further about systems and stuff, but just from a practical standpoint, piles will silently scream at us of things left undone. Right. So any pile that you have is there because you're either indecisive, you have no idea what to do with it. You're procrastinating, you know what to do with it, but you're just going to do it later, right? Tomorrow. Or you're just avoiding it completely. You're taking the pile and you're throwing it in the closet, which I've seen tons of those. I know you out there. So, so that's the reason the pile is there. And if the pile is there for so long, then it will, well, as women in particular, we see everything in our environment anyhow. And things will scream at us to do things or to look this way or to look that or, as not to be sexist, but I mean, men can narrow focus in. I can hang a new picture on a wall. My husband 3 years later will say, wow, that's cool. Right. But for women, we would notice that real quick. So especially as women in business, we need to have a clean landscape. That protects us from the distractions. So that's step one, is just clear your desk, and it'll clear your mind so that you can actually focus.
Yeah, well, that's true. I mean, when you have too much around, it's also you go to do something. It's like I don't even have a surface where I can do something. And that can be, I mean, that is just, it's so frustrating to even to take on a new project. And so I know I like to have clean, clear counters. Everything has a space, a space that it goes in, and that they get put away. And it's one of the things I noticed that when my daughter, who's in graduate school, comes home, all of a sudden she's leaving stuff all over. It's like, okay, I mean, I may set something down for half a day, but then it's like, get the bin out, put it away, put the bin back away.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and I always talk about is immediate process improvement. I'm going to do some immediate, it takes me 1 minute now and it's taken care of. So, but, I think that for so many people, organization is a big challenge. And, you know, for me, it's sort of hard for me to sort of like lean into that. Well, why is it such a challenge? Because I tend to be really organized. So can you share why it's such a challenge for so many people?
Well, you have that gene. So for you, it's a given. For me, it's not that easy. I mean, I have now that I am organized in all my spaces, is easier. It's what I call the zero spot, where everything has a home with the art around it. Then I can get it back to business. But here's the thing, Lynn. People want to be organized. They don't want to get organized.
Yeah.
It's hard. I take that back. It's not hard. It's simple, but it's not necessarily easy, because you have to put the time in to get you to that spot. You can tidy up quickly because everything has a home, right where it goes. If you don't have homes for most things, which is a lot of my clients they haven't thought about that concept. So they don't know where things should be or what makes sense for them to go. They don't have a container so that they know where it goes. It's not labeled and so on and so forth. It seems insurmountable to get started. And actually, that's why I have a job, right? So it takes strategy and it takes skill to get you to that place where everything has a home with the yard around it. Once you're there, you never go back, because you might backslide a little. Some of my clients will see me in a year later and say, I need a little brush up, Kath. But once they're there and they've spent the time doing it, then they know how good it feels and they know how much time they save. Here's something that might motivate you listeners out there. You ready for this?
Yeah.
The average entrepreneur wastes 4 hours a week trying to find things that they know that they own, but they cannot find.
Yeah.
That adds up to a month, a year. Yeah. So think about it this way. Would you rather use that month taking a vacation? Would you rather use that month finally finishing your book? How about making more money and a month of extra income, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things you can do with that extra month if you stop trying to find things that you know you own but you cannot find. In order to do that, you have to get organized. Yeah. And true, it's not fun, but boy, is it fun once it's done. Abe Lincoln said it this way, for every hour I spend in preparation, I save 3 hours of perspiration. That was back in Abe's day. We've done studies with the National Association of Professional Organizers. We've done studies over the years. It's 10 to 1. Yeah. 10 to 1. For every hour you spend getting organized, you save 10 hours later. Yeah. Right? It's a big, huge payoff.
Yeah.
But you have to decide to invest the time and invest the money in getting properly organized. Properly organized, which means that, according to my code of ethics, I have to have a transference of skills. So if I don't transfer skills to you as a client, I've failed. If I've transferred skills to you, then it's sustainable. And that means you only have to really do the big stuff once and then just refine it and refine it and refine it, practice it, use it, develop it into a habit, so on and so forth.
Yeah. Well, this is, I'm going to, for a personal, even if it's work, one thing when you look at a big thing, so I moved this last year,
Oh.
and I will say the garage is still not there. But instead of looking at it in its entirety, you look at one section, one piece that you can work on.
Mm-hmm.
And when you
Yeah.
do that one piece, so like the garage built-in cupboards and organizing the cupboards and the drawers, and they're not all done. I'd love to say, but I mean, I had the whole house to do, right?
Yeah.
But as you get that one thing done, it's like, oh wow, that's so much easier. And then you could just sort of expand from there. And what's surprising is that all of a sudden, a month or 2 months go by and you have a lot more done. And it's like this huge impact that it
Yeah.
has. But even doing that first step and organizing that first thing, you will see, wow, this made this little piece, this little corner is better. And it's the same thing in work. I write weekly emails for my clients. And one of the things I haven't done is I haven't kept a record of what I wrote, when I wrote it, that type of thing. And I discovered that I would be looking for an email that I wrote a couple years ago, but I'm trying to find it.
Mm-hmm.
And so now I ended up creating just a simple Excel log about with the date and the topic and maybe even the subject line.
Mm-hmm.
And the purpose is that some of my emails, they're really good emails. I could go back and use them again a year from now. Who's going to remember? All right. And so, but putting that in place, I didn't go back in history and do all of the emails for 7 years. When I'm moving it forward, I'm keeping track of all that. And so there may be some times where I have to go and look for something, but moving forward, all of this is going to be captured. So that if I want to share a story again about, instead of squirrels, raccoons attacking bird feeders and how that is equivalent to sales and, fending off, your competitors, whatever it happens to be, that story is there ready for me to pick up again.
And you
So
created a system.
exactly.
So what's it's all about.
Yeah. And I think it's also really important when you're thinking about it in your career, it's that I will say that in my corporate career, the fact that the president could call me and I could find a document that he wanted, and as long as I wasn't in a meeting or on a plane back in the day, I could get that to him very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was like I was his ace in the hole, always to get that piece of information because I organized it, and my hard drive also reflects what our Google Drive looks like. And we will talk about it as a team. Does it make sense to put it here? And should we change things or should we reorganize it?
Mm-hmm.
Because that way it's logical to everyone as to where to find things, and you have a system. So when people update something, you know right where it is. You're not hunting and searching for everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
and you have an agreement with the others on when
yeah.
things are called and where they're stored, which is very important. To have an agreement among your compadres who are going to be touching the files. And same thing when you go in to organize a home, it's the same thing. Have a buy-in from the people. Does
Yeah.
this make sense to keep this here?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, as we're talking about this, why is organization such a blind spot? I mean, it seems like, I just read it, whether it's at work where I've seen people that they have like 1,000 files on their desktop, and I'm going like, how can you find a stinking thing?
Mm.
To walking into like, well, I know I put this mixing bowl somewhere in the kitchen, and they're opening up cupboard after cupboard.
Well, some people it doesn't come naturally to. It comes natural to you, and you were the glue for the company, which is great. I've been I learned from my father organization, but it wasn't a secondhand thing for me as well. And it just comes down to stopping and taking the time. My clients are artistic, creative people, entrepreneurs who are jumping around, just booming and zooming. Organization is not their forte. However, if they have a system that thinks the way they think, then they can use it. But oftentimes it takes someone actually creating a system based on the way they think, act,
Yeah.
and operate, that they're going to be able to use and implement. I think a lot of times systems are forced onto people and they just don't stick because they don't even think like that.
Yeah,
Like
and
they
they don't
wouldn't
make
even
sense.
think of that word, right? To try to find a file. They wouldn't go there, right? So that's why what I love about, well, as an artistic creative entrepreneur myself, I get the juice from creating specific systems for the specific person. And no two systems are alike and no two clients are alike. And so it's really fun for me to do that. That's where I get my creative juice, right? I go, oh, I'm going to create something new that Chrissy's actually going to be able to use and work with. But here, why it doesn't work is that it's not natural to a lot of people to even think linear, and they really need a coach or a guidance system to get them to think linearly so that they can create the system that will support them. And that's the whole thing. When there's systems purring in the background of their business, like you have, Lynn, with your hard drive files, when the systems are there to support them, then they can kind of let it go and be in their full glory of doing what they started their company to do. Oftentimes, if you don't take the time to set yourself up, you end up chasing squirrels, being exhausted and overwhelmed and frazzled and not making the money, and you've lost your juju about your company. Oftentimes when people hire me, they don't even remember why did they even want to start this company, right? Like, I don't even remember what I was so fired up about because I'm so tired. But then once they get back on track and they have all those undercurrent systems supporting them, then they have their juju back, and then they're excited and empowered, and they can go forth and conquer and spread their love of whatever it is that they're doing their business for. Then they go back into their zone of genius. But quite honestly, organizing is not everybody's zone of genius. And that's the beauty of life, in my opinion, Lynn. We have people like you and I who are organized and think organized, and we can go linear. And then there's people who can, and it makes the world better. And I always, in my first book that I wrote, How to Master Your Muck, I have a whole chapter on masters hire masters. That's what we do. I hire people to do those things that I hate or that I can't do or that I don't even want to do. And I have masterful people who will do it for me or teach me how to do that which I don't know.
Yeah.
The most successful people in the world hire other coaches, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And there's one little tip that I would say, that especially if you're organizing a file and it's like one of those that's like, well, it could go here or it could go here. So one of the things that I'll do is I'll actually put it in two locations, but the location that makes it doesn't quite make as much sense, that's the file that I literally, the first thing on it, on like 18-point bold and red, it says, this is a copy of the file. The original file is located here. And then I give it the folder structure, so it's in this, and that way. And then if there's that copy on the original, the one that I'm considering the master, I still have, there is a copy of this file here. This is only a copy. Ooh. And the purpose of that is so the few times where I've like this is such an oddball, I'm not sure where to put it, I'll put it in two locations, but the one copy is clearly tagged, this is not the original, this is a copy only, and this is where you can find the original.
Yeah, do not edit. Do not edit.
Yeah, exactly. Go to the original, and this is where it is. And then I tell the other one where it is, so if I ever move it or something else, then I can update it, because obviously there was a point where I wasn't sure where to put it. It didn't, there are things like that in our lives that just don't have like this, like this logical perfect space. So, and as we're wrapping up here, Kathi, what should listeners do next to ignore the distractions at home or in their career, at work, and stay focused?
Yeah, well, definitely clear your mind, clear your clutter, clear your space, and you'll see a ripple effect that happens with that. So if you want to begin to start organizing, right, starting your organizing chops, you can start with your hard drive. But I always say, let's do something really simple, because everyone has a sock drawer. And everyone has a drawer with their socks in. And typically, I've only had 2 people in 20 years that they're invested in their socks. Typically, we have no emotional attachment to our socks. So if you want to start seeing, yes, I can be organized, right? If you've never organized anything, start there. Get rid of all the loosies, make all the, make all the pairs go together, and, get rid of the riffraffs and the holes and all that. The reason that I say to start there is because generally it is a drawer and it's a confined, contained amount of space.
Yeah.
So if it's not, and you have socks all over everywhere, choose a location, and that's going to be your agreement with yourself about, this is how many socks I'm going to own. This is what I agree with myself. If I can't fit, all my socks need to fit in this one space. If they don't, they're out of there. So that gives you a litmus on what to get rid of and how much to keep. Then you can pare it down and make it so that it makes sense for you. And then you'll feel like, oh, I can actually organize something, right? It's something simple that you're not vested in. From there, like you said, Lynn, you get that momentum and you feel more masterful, and you get rid of that. A lot of people they can't let go.
Yeah.
I always say their letting go muscles are atrophied. And that's another reason that you can't get organized, is if you have an excess of everything, it's really difficult to organize. So if you learn how to let go, like of those old nasty socks that you didn't like, or they didn't have elastic or whatever, they just shouldn't be in your wardrobe, then you've now exercised your letting go muscles, and it'll be easier for you to let go the next time and do more and do more and do more. So that's just from home organizing type of thing. In business, I highly recommend that you get all your contacts put into one place. So if you have contacts in multiple areas, go ahead and get them all condensed down to one contact database that you're going to use forevermore, or only have one, right?
Yeah.
So I just came from a client that has that her things are not syncing any longer. So she has contacts spread all over the place. She's trying to figure out, why can she not find the pool cleaner guy, right? Because he's not there. Yeah. he's there, but he's not in her other 2 places. Why? I don't know. So I'd say start by putting like with like in whatever area you can that you don't have a vested emotional attachment to, whether it's your socks or your contact database. Start somewhere and try to get everything into one space, labeled and categorized, as you said. And just practice the letting go muscles. Practice letting go of things that no longer serve you. Practice not jumping to the next branch and chasing that next squirrel. Practice just staying linear and focused.
Yeah. That's all good advice. And, one thing, if you're thinking about which socks to get rid of and you're having trouble letting go, take a picture of them, because you'll still keep the picture. I mean, it's a little digital file, and then you can throw out the socks.
Yeah. Exactly.
So, Kathi, is there anything you wish I'd asked you?
I think that the main thing that I'd like to let everyone know out here is that a seemingly small, insignificant change in anything that you do creates a larger than life ripple effect. So if you want to make change in your life and in your business, in your career, you want to get the advancement, start making small changes in whatever way you can. That's the least scary change, right? Just start shifting, because the more space you have, the more clarity you have. And the more clear thinking you have, the more productive you are. And the more productive you are, the faster you get to your goals. And the faster you get to your goals means you're probably either getting the money, or you're getting the house, or you're getting the career advancement, or whatever it is, right? But it all starts from that point of starting to make small, insignificant changes, because they do go like that and they ripple right up for you.
All right. That's beautiful. So, Kathi, thank you so much for sharing all about how to stop chasing squirrels and stay focused on advancing your career. I know that our listeners are going to want to know more about you. Can you share where they can find you and find out about you?
Oh yeah. So I have a download for you that's free, and it's called the Ultimate Productivity Checklist. And I want to give this to you. The reason being is I spent 20 years trying to figure out, how can I be more productive, and so I put my 8 favorite ways that I can increase my productivity. Now, I know for a fact that you're not going to do all 8. Maybe you're going to pick one thing or 2 things. I challenge you to take 2 things that I suggest and implement them and see what happens, right? So you're going to get this ultimate productivity checklist. Some of them you're going to be, no way, no way. And then you're like, oh, I could do that one, or I could do that one. So download the checklist and try to implement at least 1, if not 2, of the tactics that I've given you, and then watch your productivity increase and watch your money, the bottom line, happen for you. Things will get better for you in some aspect. So set your intention on what you want to do, what you want to achieve, download the checklist, do 1 or 2 of those things, and I guarantee you're going to make some progress towards your goals.
Well, that's brilliant. And we will be sure to have that link is right down below so that you can click on it along with Kathy's website, all of her socials, so that you can get connected to Kathi. And thank you, Kathi, so much. I really appreciate your being here. And thank you to everyone who tuned in. We always appreciate your being a part of our audience. This has been such an informative discussion, and we are so glad that we've been able to have this. So thank you again, Kathi.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure. Thank you so much, Lynn. I appreciate being on the show.
What was your biggest takeaway from this episode? I would love to hear about it. It's important to share the things you love. If you loved this episode, a 5-star review really helps keep the podcast coming to you regularly. Also, if you want to get more sales strategies to grow your business, make sure you subscribe right now. If you want to get results even faster, I invite you to download my sales strategy checklist at petitetoqueen.com/checklist. This has been Lynn Whitbeck, host of Claim Your Career Crown. I'll see you next time.